Oh, all right. We are ready to go. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Well, welcome to the August Human Rights Commission meeting. We do not have quorum, so we are going to be skipping some of our agenda items. We'll go ahead and start with introductions. So how these work is give your name, if you are a member of the commission, and if you are, what ward you're from, pronouns if you feel comfortable for sharing, and then pick on someone else to go. So I can start. My name is Kelsey. I use she, her pronouns. I am a member of the Human Rights Commission, and I live in Ward 4. And I'm going to popcorn to, let's go to Kathy.
Thanks, Kelsey. Hello, my name is Kathy. I'm a member of the Human Rights Commission. I live in South Salem. My pronouns are she, her, and I will pass it to Joaquin.
Thank you, Kathy. My name is Joaquin. I live in West Salem, Ward 8. I'm a member of the commission and happy to see those of us that are here. Lieutenant.
Hi, I'm Debbie Aguilar. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a lieutenant with the Salem Police Department, and I'm the liaison between the police department and the Human Rights Commission. And I'll pass it to our guest, Penelope.
Hi, my name is Penelope. I am not on the Human Rights Commission, obviously, but I'm excited to see what it's like as a guest.
I'm glad you could join us. Thank you.
And hi, everybody. My name is Gretchen, and I'm on the staff team here at the city, and I use she and her pronouns. Thank you.
All right. To help the interpreters, I need to remind myself also to say my name when I start speaking. So this is Kelsey. Okay, so now we're going to move into public comment. So Gretchen, did you receive any public comments?
I did not. None received this evening.
Hey, are there any public comments from folks in the Zoom right now? All right, seeing none. We don't have quorum, so we can't approve the agenda or the minutes. So let's go ahead and jump to task force and project updates. Kathy, can you give an update from the awareness task force?
Sure. So we met on, let's see, it would have been last Wednesday, and we primarily talked about the communication regarding the survey. There's actually, I think it might be 1.5 page overview that we reviewed for sending it out to media and posting it on the website and the email groups and all of that. And I think that was included in the packet tonight for the commission meeting. We've talked about ideas for what we might do differently for next year's survey, whether it be next year or whenever the next survey is. One of the recommendations was that, for example, the students had suggested an infographic that we could share. We didn't want to take the time necessarily to do that this time because it would delay our getting the communication out, but that would be something that we could plan ahead for next time. One of our task force members suggested maybe looking into doing some sort of a column in either the Salem Reporter or the Statesman Journal. And I think Gretchen was going to look into the feasibility of that, but that'd be a way to keeping regular communication with the community just about the commission in general. If there's something specific that we have to share, we could do that. Otherwise, it would be a high level general communication about the commission, what we're doing, when our meetings are, that sort of thing. We talked a little bit about the communication plan for Chapter 97, assuming that goes to City Council soon, to have something ready for assuming that it goes to council soon and that council approves, that we have a communication plan to let the community know that this has happened and that these changes have been made to Chapter 97. And it would also be an opportunity for us to do some public education about our unsheltered neighbors and homelessness and things along those lines. So we're going to talk about that at our next meeting. I guess that would be later this month. And I think that was most of it. We did talk a little bit about the position description for the Human Rights Commission. It's a good idea, but right now the task force doesn't have capacity to take that on. So it's just going to stay on our list as something to keep in mind for a future date. So I think, Gretchen, I don't know if you remember anything differently from. Sorry, I muted myself in the middle of a sentence.
Sounds good.
This is Kelsey. Thank you, Kathy, for sharing that. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate the work that the Awareness Task Force has been doing. Gretchen, can we ask for an update on the equity asks if you have one?
Yeah, absolutely. And real quick, the equity asks refers to a document that the Human Rights Commission supported and approved a while back that had a number of asks or things that they identified as being helpful to move forward in the arena of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I brought 2 notes tonight. One of them is that there is a broader update planned for City Council at a meeting to be determined in September or maybe October now, which would provide some updates on some of the internal work that's happening at the city after the hiring of the coordinator position. And there's some opportunity to pair some of the updates or information about the work of the Human Rights Commission in with that. So we're taking a look at what could be included in that update. And I think we'll also learn some things too. I haven't been completely aware of all of the threads and accomplishments that are going on throughout the city. So it'll also, that report compilation that's happening for council, I think will also be really informative to the Human Rights Commission. I also was looking at the document, and for those of you who might have that old document, there's a line in there that is called, it's in the support group, support 45, that speaks about developing relationships with youth and young people in Salem. And I thought I'd mention that we've had some good progress in that area. We have a coordinator position at the city who focuses on youth and young adult opportunities. And she's recently launched 6 new paid internships, for example, for young people that are going to be a great way of connecting youth with the city and with workforce development skills and other things. She's also just concluded a partnership with Isaac's Room downtown with a summer program and partnership that again works on life skills and workforce skills. It included some beautification projects here at City Hall in partnership with the Parks Department and some pollinator gardens. So there's just been some neat activities going on that are developing relationships and positive opportunities with youth and young people. So I thought I'd mention that, but that's all I brought tonight underneath the Equity Asks update.
This is Kelsey. Thanks for sharing. Those projects sound really great. I should have asked before, are there any questions for the Awareness Task Force or this Equity Asks? All right. LGBTQIA+ Intersectional Task Force. I was not at the last meeting, so does someone have an update?
This is Kathy. You want me to go ahead, Gretchen?
Thank you. I would welcome that.
Yeah, we didn't have, I think half of our group was missing. So we had a good conversation though. The one thing I would mention is that Mike Waters, who has been the chair of the task force, is no longer going to be chair. So they're leaving us, so we'll need to find a new chair. And was that going to be an agenda item for tonight, Gretchen? I guess that leaves me wondering what's happening with the task force's August meeting if we don't have a chair.
Thank you. Angelo had asked me to make sure every member of the task force is aware of that opportunity or vacancy. And the process would be that the chair of the commission directly appoints chairs of
Okay.
subcommittees. So Angela was just interested to know who might be interested in serving in that role. And then if there's more than one, then we'll need to develop more of a process. But if someone's interested, he'd be considering that. So he asked me to check with people and let him know.
Do you know, has Chicarico been informed of that? Because I don't believe they were at the meeting.
They weren't,
week.
and so
Okay.
they've been informed, yeah.
Okay. I know Amelia was there, and I think that's it as far as task force members. Is
Yeah.
it not? Okay.
Yeah, Amelia, Kelsey,
Oh, Kelsey, right, Kelsey.
Chicarico,
I
yourself.
apologize. Yeah.
Yeah, I
okay.
think that's correct.
Okay, good. So everybody knows. We talked about the safe spaces documentation. And if I remember correctly, Gretchen's gonna put it all together and put it on the web as a draft so that it can be shared with potential with businesses and organizations to get feedback specifically on, here's what we've got so far. Does this work for you? Do you have any suggestions? So that before we make too much more progress, we can have that input from organizations who are potentially going to be part of the program. And then we started talking about the Transgender Day of Remembrance, which I think is on November 20th, which is a Sunday this year. Started talking about plans for that. We talked about having it be a hybrid event in the evening and some potential locations for holding the in-person part of that. So yeah, and that is what I at least made notes of from our meeting.
Great.
Any questions about that?
Thanks so much for those updates. Really appreciate it. Let's see. It looks like next is staff updates. Gretchen, do you have anything for us?
Yeah, and forgive me, Laura is entering our waiting room, so I want to let Laura in real quick. I was just gonna bring one update related to the training that we have been interested in holding here at the Human Rights Commission. There was a topic identified a few months back as being where to begin, which included understanding a little bit of cultural relativism, or if you're interacting in a context with a variety of identities, what sort of thoughts, pieces, information would be helpful to know as you examine your own communication approach, if you will, kind of cultural relativism or opportunities for adaptation that would be appropriate. And a former member of the Human Rights Commission, Carl Pomme-Faudre, is delighted to put something like that together. And Carl will tell you his background. He's well suited to put together this talk for us with both his research and professional work that he's done in the past. But he asked me to ask you all a couple of questions in terms of your appreciation for a training. Like, would you want like 30 minutes, 60 minutes? Would you like some discussion questions, a little bit of lecture, some reading in advance? He just wanted to get a feel for what kind of thing or approach would the Human Rights Commission like to see as he's thinking about options. So I was going to throw out those questions in case anybody would like to share some of that, and then we'll get moving on a plan based on your feedback. Like one idea, we've embedded these within meetings before, for example, like we'll say, well, like, and as you can see, a night like tonight, there's space and time on the agenda. So you can have a speaker provide some remarks, plus or minus some slides that are sharing, you plus or minus some advanced reading material made available, and then keying up a few key discussion points. But if there's anything along those lines that you'd like to share with me now or later, you're welcome to.
This is Kathy. I'll just say, I mean, what you've described sounds fine to me. Having something, I think, during a meeting time, a regularly scheduled meeting time is probably better, because I know we've had trouble rescheduling meetings in the past, getting a time where we're all available. But yeah, I personally, I like to have some materials to look at ahead of time and during the meeting to be able to refer to and back to. So my thoughts.
100% agree with Kathy. I like short readings and discussion questions that can like lead into more discussion. I think that's really helpful.
Thank you. But that's all I brought for staff report at this time.
Okay. Looks like community calendar is next. Do we have anything coming up?
Just one thing, and I want to appreciate those of you who've responded. We have a couple people signed up to join me at the city's 50th anniversary of the building. The Civic Center itself, the building here at City Hall, is turning 50. And there's a number of activities happening on the campus, and we'll have a table available. So I was seeing if anyone wanted to come down, and I've got a couple of yeses. So we're looking forward to just connecting with the public about the work we do.
Awesome. That's good to hear. Do we want to do any of the action and or discussion items, such as like the bias crime update, complaints and concerns of discrimination?
Yeah, I'm happy to bias crime update if you would like. Okay, perfect. We had 2 since we last met, both at the end of July. The first one was in Southeast Salem. It happened on July 25th, and it was at a business. A customer came in and a portion of the business was closed. It was a little bit later in the evening. A customer came in, wanted service at that particular section of the store. The manager came out and said, this particular section is closed. We can't assist you right now. And the person became pretty upset, began yelling at the manager, who is Asian, made some derogatory comments towards his race, and then also made some threatening comments alluding to he had a weapon, or they had a weapon. It wasn't a male. They had a weapon. So the person ultimately left, or the suspect ultimately left. However, the police did arrive and ended up taking the person into custody for a bias crime, as well as a menacing for the threatening comments about the weapons. So that was concluded with an arrest. The second one happened on July 31st, and I think it happened in Southeast Salem, but I forgot to put that on my notes, so I'll have to follow up with that next month. But it involved a unknown suspect who went up to a house that had a Black Lives Matter sign in the yard, and the suspect started grabbing the sign and was trying to take it away with them. When the homeowner came out, confronted them, was able to get the sign back, and as the suspect was walking away, was making some derogatory and racial slur comments towards the victim. The suspect at that time wasn't identified, so we're still trying to identify that suspect. So that investigation is inactivated until we identify a suspect. So those were the 2 new biased crimes. I did want to follow up though, because Commissioner Schwartz asked me a question last meeting about if during the month of June we see an increase in bias crimes or bias incidents towards the LGBTQ community because of Pride Month. And so I went back and looked in my notes, and historically we have not seen an increase in bias crimes towards that community. However, this is the first year where we actually did. So right now, for the year 2022, we have 12 bias crimes. 7 of those bias crimes are against the LGBTQ community, and 4 of those bias crimes actually occurred during the month of June, which is an increase. Prior to that and both after that are where the other crimes took place. So there was an increase in June. And actually, I consulted with the Oregon Department of Justice Bias Crime Hotline, and they also noted that this year is the first year where June was an increase in LGBTQ related bias crimes. So historically, bias crimes in both Salem and Oregon in general, the majority of bias crimes are against someone because of their race, and generally targeting Black individuals. However, this year, the month of June, the majority of bias crimes, both in Salem as well as in the state, were against LGBTQ communities. So we thought that was it was different than what we have seen in the past. So I wanted just to pass that on to the commission in answer to Commissioner Schwartz's question about that. And that was all I had.
This is Kelsey. Thank you for sharing that. Any questions for Lieutenant Aguilar? All right, seeing none. Gretchen, do you have any complaints / concerns of discrimination?
I received, oh, this is Gretchen. I received one that was an inquiry. They were uncertain about how something related to being hearing impaired is being handled at their workplace, and wanted to discuss the ADA and some procedures, but it was really more of an inquiry or an exploration, but assisted that person, but then no other complaints or inquiries.
This is Kelsey. Okay, thank you. It looks like we are down to member remarks and announcements. Does anyone have anything?
I have a question. This is Joaquin. I have a question. Lionel had talked about us going to her place of work potentially and talking with the houseless community about the changes to city code. I don't know if that conversation has developed or evolved or where we are in that, but I think that's something that we should, I expressed at the time, but I express again, I think something we should consider seriously.
Thank you. Absolutely. I think that as the ideas has developed, the thought would be that it would be, we're getting the feedback that it might be helpful if it's an approved idea instead of a theoretical one, that we had gone out earlier on some feedback and folks had thought it was already decided, and it was confusing for folks that it was in a discussion status. And so I think the thought shifted to if approved, going out and visiting at the shelter and maybe additional locations as well that would reach additional people could be really smart from the standpoint of helping to share what this is, what it means, how it tied back to the discrimination survey in the beginning, how we can assist if people experience discrimination kind of as part of a rollout that I think maybe we'd think through at the Awareness Campaign Task Force in a little bit more detail. That might create confusion coming back again in a draft status. It might feel fatiguing to people who, like, we knew it was in a draft. Why are you telling us it's still in a draft?
Yeah, my understanding was actually that it wasn't that we were going to talk about a draft, but it was to go into the community and talk about the changes and have that conversation. So that was more my question. I should have clarified.
Oh, thank you. Great. Yeah. So I think that once confirmed by city council or decided by city council, absolutely. And there may be additional locations that folks are interested in doing and or adapting some of the other communications tools that you already have. Some of you have been thinking about inviting a kind of a community meeting, for example. That might be another, there's a few pathways to do that kind of communication.
Thank you.
This is Kelsey. All right, thank you for that question. Any other questions or comments from members?
This is Laura. I just want to apologize to the commission for my lateness tonight. I I didn't mean to be late, so apologies.
All good, all good. Life happens. Okay, Gretchen, anything else?
I don't think so. I'll be sending a couple of emails with a couple of follow-ups from this evening, and then I imagine we'll look to next time.
Sounds good. Well, I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your evening.